The hall was silent before the applause even began. Rows of uniformed officers filled the front seats, medals glinting beneath the soft stage lights. In the center stood K9 Ranger, a black German shepherd known for his loyalty and precision in every operation. But something was wrong. He did not move when the chief called his name. The medal ribbon gleamed in the officer's hand, waiting. Ranger's handler, Officer Cole, gave the quiet signal he had trained him to follow. Still nothing. The dog's eyes stayed fixed on the far end of the hall, steady, unblinking. Cameras clicked, flashes cut through the moment. Yet Ranger remained still. It was not hesitation, it was focus, the kind that came before movement in the field. What had he sensed in a place so calm, so ceremonial? Here is the full story. But before we jump in, one click can change everything for you here. Hit like, subscribe, and let us see how deep this story really goes. The chief tried again. The crowd expected the familiar obedience, the proud salute of the K9s that came before. Instead, Ranger turned away from the podium. His paws clicked sharply against the polished floor as he stepped down from the stage. Gasps rolled through the crowd. Officer Cole followed, unsure whether to call him back. Ranger's tail was stiff, ears drawn forward, head slightly lowered. It was not defiance, it was drive, the kind that only surfaced when something unseen called for his attention. Ranger stopped near the rear exit, nose twitching once, then twice. The air was clean, yet his muscles tightened like he had caught a trace of something that should not be there. Why would a scent outside a crowded ceremony matter to him more than the honor waiting on stage? The cameras kept rolling. Reporters whispered. The medal still hung unused in the chief's hand. Then Ranger sat down, facing the closed service door behind the auditorium. A quiet rumble escaped his throat, low and steady. Every officer who had worked with him knew that sound. It was the warning he gave before uncovering something he was not supposed to find. Officer Cole froze. He knew the pattern. Ranger had done this once before during a missing officer search months earlier. That case had ended in a field where no one expected to find anything at all. A chill passed through the hall as Ranger refused to move. The ceremony lights flickered against the back wall, and the silence deepened. Something beyond that door had pulled his attention away from the spotlight. Something stronger than applause or medals. And when Officer Cole finally reached for the handle, the sound that came from the other side changed the room. The service door creaked open, releasing a draft that carried dust and the faint smell of old metal. Ranger slipped inside before anyone could stop him. The cameras turned, catching only the swing of his tail disappearing into the shadows. The narrow hallway led behind the main auditorium, a place used for storage and electrical panels. Nothing dangerous was supposed to be there. Yet Ranger's behavior said otherwise. His paws pressed silently against the floor, nose sweeping in arcs, tail rigid. Every motion carried purpose. Officer Cole followed with two officers close behind. Their boots echoed against the tiles. Each sound felt too loud in that thin corridor. Ranger paused at a stack of sealed crates, sniffed the lower edges, then turned toward the far end where an old maintenance room stood half open. What could he possibly be tracking in a place that had been locked for months? Cole noticed the air had changed. A stale chemical smell lingered, faint but distinct, not enough to alarm, yet sharp enough to make his throat tighten. Ranger's body language shifted again, his shoulders lowered, head dipping as he advanced toward the open room. Inside was nothing more than shelves of spare cables and folding chairs. Yet the dog halted at a single metal locker near the corner. He pressed his paw against the door, claws scraping once. Then he sat down again, eyes fixed. Cole's hand brushed the padlock. It was not standard issue, newer, shinier, recently replaced. Someone had been here recently. But why? He turned to the others, signaling them to step back. Ranger leaned forward, nose pressed to the base. A low sound came again, almost a growl, but steadier, deliberate. The same tone he gave when identifying live scent traces, The chief had arrived now, medal still in hand, confusion written across his face. What was meant to be a celebration had turned into a silent investigation in the middle of their own precinct building. Cole unhooked the padlock. The locker door swung open with a dull, metallic sigh. Inside hung a single police uniform, pressed, clean, but wrong. The name tag did not match anyone from the department. The insignia was old, from a division that had been disbanded years earlier. How did this uniform end up here, in a secured facility? Ranger pawed at the lower shelf. Beneath a folded jacket lay a sealed envelope marked with faded ink. The same name engraved on the metal waiting on stage. The air turned colder. Cole's pulse quickened. That name belonged to an officer who never returned from a raid nearly 2 years ago. The case had closed without answers. What was that officer's uniform doing hidden inside this building? Ranger nudged the envelope gently, his ears back, eyes fixed on Cole as if urging him to understand something. The medal now looked less like an award and more like a question. Cole picked up the envelope. It was heavier than paper alone. He could feel the weight of something metallic inside. He looked down at Ranger, who stared back with a steady gaze, the same one he had given at the stage. Before anyone could speak, Ranger turned again toward the exit. He wanted to go somewhere else, somewhere connected to what they had just found. Whatever was in that envelope was not the end of it. It was the beginning of something the dog had been sensing all along. The corridor opened into the back parking lot, washed in pale afternoon light. Ranger moved straight toward the far corner, where old patrol vehicles sat under dust and silence. The crowd had followed now, officers, reporters. The chief still holding that unclaimed medal. Every camera was pointed at the dog. Ranger stopped beside an unmarked black SUV, one that had been parked for years. His nose pressed against the door seam, tail frozen. The same focused stillness as before. Cole felt the same chill crawl up his spine. Cole tried the door. It was locked. But the tag on the key ring hanging from the ignition read the same name from the envelope. The missing officer's name. The one no one had spoken of in months. Was Ranger leading them back to a truth that had never been buried properly? Cole slid the window down with a tool. The air that escaped carried a stale smell like damp leather and old dust. Inside, the seats were covered in a thin layer of grime, except one patch on the passenger floor where the dust had been disturbed. Something had been there recently. Something or someone. Ranger's ears shot up. He circled to the back of the SUV, nose to the bumper, then barked once, sharp and loud, the kind of bark that meant confirmation, not confusion. Cole opened the rear hatch. Beneath the spare tire cover, wrapped in faded police-issued cloth, lay a small metal container. Its hinges were rusted but intact. Inside were 2 items, a service badge covered in soot and a folded piece of torn notebook paper. Cole unfolded it carefully. The handwriting was faint but legible. It was a log note, time-stamped the night the missing officer disappeared. The last line read, "If this gets found, it means the mission never ended." The realization hit like a wave. The case that had taken Ranger's first handler 2 years ago had not been closed after all. Ranger had recognized something, a scent, a trace of his former partner's gear, hidden beneath layers of time and silence. The medal ceremony had not been a celebration for him. It had been a reminder. Cole's throat tightened. How could a dog hold on to something for this long, not just scent but purpose? Ranger stepped back, eyes shifting from the SUV toward the woods behind the lot. There was more. A trail cut through those woods, leading to an old training range used by the department years ago. Ranger started toward it without hesitation. Cole followed, every step heavier than the last. As they moved deeper, the light dimmed beneath the trees. Ranger stopped again, this time near a patch of disturbed soil at the base of an old oak. He lowered his head and began to dig. Cole knew better than to stop him. The ground gave way easily, loose and moist as if someone had been there not long ago. Then Ranger froze, paw still half buried. his eyes fixed on something half hidden in the dirt, a small silver tag engraved with the missing officer's number. Cole fell silent. The trail of scent, the locker, the car, it all connected now. Ranger had not been refusing a medal. He had been asking them to look where they never had. But one question remained. If Ranger had found this, what else was buried here, and who wanted it to stay hidden? The digging stopped only when Ranger's paw struck something solid beneath the damp soil. Cole knelt beside him and brushed away the dirt with his hands. The metallic glint beneath the surface was not a weapon or casing. It was a police tracker device, one used years ago in covert operations. Cole turned it over in his palm. The battery was dead, but a small inscription remained etched on the back, the same date the officer had vanished. The mission had not failed, it had been buried. Ranger sat beside him, breathing steady, eyes watching every movement as if waiting for understanding to arrive. Cole remembered the logs, the envelope, the uniform, each one a message Ranger had pieced together for them. None of this was random. The chief arrived moments later with a small group. He looked down at the tracker, then at Ranger, and realization began to ripple through the team. The missing officer had not deserted or vanished. He had stayed behind to hide evidence of something that had gone wrong. Ranger had carried that story with him ever since. The team combed the area. Beneath the same tree, just a few feet from where Ranger had stopped, they unearthed a small waterproof case. Inside were photographs, time-stamped reports, and one last sealed flash drive marked for internal eyes only. Every image pointed to a corruption ring buried within the department, one the missing officer had tried to expose. Cole felt his chest tighten. Ranger had not only remembered his partner's scent, he had remembered his unfinished duty. The investigation reopened instantly. Evidence teams swept in, marking the soil, sealing the case. Ranger stayed still beside the tree, ears down as if waiting for permission to stand down after years of silent service. The ceremony resumed that evening, not on the grand stage, but under the open sky near the oak tree where the truth had surfaced. The same cameras rolled again, yet the air felt different now, quieter, heavier, real. Cole placed the medal gently on Ranger's collar. This time the dog did not turn away. He stood straight, eyes reflecting the soft orange glow of the setting sun. Every officer present understood what had happened. The refusal earlier had not been rebellion. It had been grief. It had been memory. The medal had belonged not only to him but to the partner he had lost. Cole lifted his hand and rested it on Ranger's head. The crowd stayed silent. The chief lowered his cap, whispering a short salute to the man and the dog who had closed the case. None of them could. Ranger's tail moved once, slow and calm. For the first time that day, his body eased. The duty that had kept him restless was finally done. When the cameras cut, no one spoke for a while. The only sound was the wind through the trees, carrying the faint rattle of the metal against his collar. Cole looked down at him, a silent hero who had carried both loyalty and truth longer than anyone realized. The metal caught the last light, shimmering between gold and shadow. The truth had cleared the room, the ceremony, and the story itself. And Ranger, the dog who refused the stage, had just rewritten what it meant to earn one. He stood beneath the fading sky, the last salute of a canine who never forgot his partner, as the chief finally pinned the medal where it belonged. And for the first time in years, Ranger let the moment stay. Some stories end in applause, others end in silence that says everything. Ranger's medal was more than an award, it was a promise kept. Stay close because the next case might just change what you believe about loyalty itself. Tap subscribe and be here when it unfolds.